Hello and welcome back to the channel. Here we just firing up the forge. Today I am building the new pipework for the Thomas II locomotive we've rebuilt here at the Steam Workshop. This is replacing the original pipework, which was kind of ugly. It also went into the top of the cylinder covers. We are routing it through the side in the frames. So first of all, I am starting by bending this 1/2 inch BSP pipe, following the contour of the boiler. So the idea is to come off the steam dome, run down the original slot in the dome cover, under the frames, and then pop up between the two cylinders instead of teeing off and coming in the top as it was before. So yeah, just warming up, and before I go to my bend, I'm just quenching off. I've got a sacrificial nut on the end to protect the threads, just quench it off. And then I've got a post in the end of my anvil, which is to enable me to lever upon things, because I've got bend it in all sorts of different directions. So I've got to come out of a valve, which is on the steam dome, bend it around the boiler, get it under the boiler, between the frames, go forward and tee off into the cylinders. So yeah, here I am just cooling off the pipe I don't want to bend. So I cool off the sacrificial nut on the end and just aim to quench it just to control where I'm bending it. And I'm only doing it bit by bit, so I'm not going to cause any creases. Dome cover going back on here. You can see a pair of lines that run down the side of the boiler where we had it previously, and I've got to kick it forward a little bit to avoid the way shaft for the reverser. And yeah, so I've got to kick it forward and then come around underneath the boiler. So yeah, it's just tweaking it bit by bit, warming it up, bending it, trying it out, warming it up, bending it, trying it out. Yeah, just really trying to sneak up on the final shape I need. So I'm winding it onto the valve. I'm then able to get it all onto the boiler, see how it's looking, see how it's following the lines, using the boiler as a form really as well. So that's the general shape I'm trying to follow. Though it will follow round the cladding in the finished project. So yeah, just wind it into the valve, just clamp the dome cover down, and then hoping to just bend it into its final shape. And it's lots of backwards and forwards, lots of heating, cooling. Just aiming to get this just a nice clean line. Periodically, I'm using a wire brush just to clean off any scale that's on the pipework. And yeah, it's really starting to come along. Now moving on to the rest of the pipe fittings. Here I'm just screwing in a piece of threaded pipe. All the pipes are pre-threaded at the pipe suppliers. I generally go through his scrap bin and I pull out chunks, and there I'm not having to cut any threads. So I'm using pre-wound threads, which that guy does all in his workshop, and then I just chop off whatever I need. The rest of the pipe comes in handy on other projects. Here I am just zipping these off with a cut-off wheel, and then I will set myself up really for the routing of the pipework into the cylinders. Moving on to my belt grinder here, I'm just grinding the ends flat, and also I'm going to be putting a bevel on there, giving a nice penetration bead for the welding process that's going to be coming up. Now here you can see it all coming together. I've got weld on elbows, weld on angle, weld on T-pieces. They've got a real good stock level, and just I wind everything together, tack weld it all up before I come back and do a finish weld, just making sure I'm getting all my shapes right. Yeah, so some of this weld setup on the pipework is quite awkward. I really need to figure a better way of being able to clamp all these fittings down before I weld them together, to make sure I am getting those perfect 90 degrees and everything's all flat and in the right planes. But it's all a growth. This is the first time I've done a steam pipe setup like this. Looking at doing it a lot more because it worked out really well. You really can put the pipe exactly where you want it to. So I'm just going around now, finishing off all my first welds, getting everything all nice and good fill on the weld. So yeah, I've got a root, so I'm welding my root. I will come back later and put a cap weld on everything after I've actually done a test on it to make sure I've got no leaks. Here I'm just putting a little bit of a joggle in this piece of pipe. Now this is the piece that links into the bottom of the pipe that comes down off the top. I've got to put a little bit of a joggle in it to make way for the pipe union because I've got a brake rod runs through the middle of it. Sorry, not the brake rod, it's a drain cock rod. And yeah, just in between the frames there, I've got to make sure I can get the union nut high enough so it's not going to interfere with the valve rod, which you can just see in the middle. So yeah, it's all starting to come together now, so I can clamp this part down to the table, welding on the T-section. I've actually shortened the sides of the T-section now that I know where everything sits between the frames, and get this all tacked together and welded up. Yeah, so from there I pop it all onto the engine, so you can see the two pipes go off to the sides inside the cylinders, come down into the T-piece, which then goes back, and then it's going to attach to the end of this pipe. Now I'm just putting the final bends in at the bottom. Now that I've got the bottom part of the pipework set up, I can finalise the bottom bend on this before trimming. I also got to put a little bit of a side step joggle in it again for the way shaft of the reverser. Now with it all back on, I'm just bolting down the dome cover here, so I've got it in its final location, and lining it all up underneath with the piece that I've already welded together at the bottom, then reaching through between the frames. Really awkward this one, just tacking it together in situ. Therefore I know it is the correct shape. I can unwind this nut on the bottom and again remove the steam dome, and I can then get on and do the final welding on that. A little bit awkward this one because yeah, trying to get it into a position to weld it, everything was rocking around because it is quite an organic shape for welding this one. So yeah, it's just finding a nice comfortable position. Now on to the hydraulic testing of all the pipework. So I've got it blanked off at one end, and I've got this pump plugged into the other, and I've taken this up to about 250 psi. So I'm going well beyond whatever it's gonna see. Post regulator, I'm looking at about 125 psi. So I'm going to twice working pressure here, making sure if I've got any leaks I can identify them. I haven't done the cap welds on these yet, so this is just the root welds. Just got one little pin weep there, which I can come back, grind out, re-weld prior to fitting it all back on. And here I'm just using some Heldite jointing compound just on the threaded portion that goes into the side of the cylinder covers here. Sorry, side of the cylinder covers. These are the valve chests, so on the inside of the frames, the valve chests. So the pipework connects on there, and yeah, just a nice sealing with Heldite. Now here's the finished product. I have wrapped this in a exhaust fabric wrap that I get from China. I can't find the link anymore, unfortunately, so I need to find a new supply. And the lubricator pipes come in here, so it's nice and high up towards the regulator, so you get a good atomization of the steam oil in the steam. And yeah, I think it looks fantastic. As always, thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.